And it's also in that time period as well, like, although I had the mindset of like, I just have to be consistent, it's going to happen, it was also like, all right, well, there's also maybe a reason why more people aren't listening.
Mm-hmm.
So it was also identifying the fact that, you know, there are certain skills within the podcast that I need to get better at, or I need to be more of myself in these episodes and show more of my personality.
I feel nauseous, believe me. Never had a lot of shit come easy. Had to work hard, struggle just to be me. Had to rise up just so they could see me. Did what I had to do just to feed me, and what was left over I put towards my dreaming. But the only thing in life that has meaning are the things you gotta work for, believe me. Take into your hands a plan, your own hands can land your own brand. And damn, I feel like no one takes accountability. They want the credibility, convincingly unwilling to put in the...
Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. I'm joined here by Danny Kennedy. Welcome, mate.
Thanks for having me, man.
Do you want to give everyone a little bit of an introduction as to who you are, what you do, and we'll dive into it from there?
For sure, man. So, yeah, my name's Danny Kennedy. I am a fitness trainer, online coach, shifted a little bit now into some mindset stuff as well, but podcaster as well. So I grew up country Victoria, moved to Melbourne straight after year 12 for basketball initially. After a couple of years of basketball full-time, had an injury setback, which then led me to move into my coaching career or personal training career, I guess you could call it. In that space, I kind of spent the first year or two, obviously, just getting a lot of experience around building an actual business. Up until that point, I'd been very focused on becoming a professional athlete, that I hadn't put really any thought into the business side of personal training. It was just the passion side. But very quickly fell in love with being able to help people. The kind of focus shifted from being on myself to then shifting into helping other people and getting a lot of enjoyment out of that, and I found it very rewarding. So started doing some physique competing as well over that first year or two after finishing up basketball. It wasn't long after that I shifted into the online space also, in terms of coaching people online, which was pretty organic in terms of just people reaching out, asking for help here and there, and then just seeing that as a potential second revenue stream as well. So I was kind of just using, which I still do to this day, using a lot of my own experiences and just documenting them, particularly through social media, as consistently as I possibly could, trying to keep it as relatable as possible, pretty raw, and just, as I said, consistency was a massive key for me early on in building the business and learning the importance of networking and whatnot, continuing to just do everything I possibly could to master my craft and become, someone that was an industry leader, ideally. Using the competing as well to document, the processes I was using to get in shape, which is what I was, and to this day, still using with clients as well, which was awesome. Just getting as much content as possible on that side, which then led me to starting my podcast around 2016, 2017, called the Fitness and Lifestyle Podcast. And that was something that I'd been considering for a while and just hadn't pulled the trigger on. And then I was just like, fuck it, I'm going to jump in. Got the first episode done, and then have put out an episode at least once a week since then. And
it's a good roll, right? It's a very good run.
Fucking oath. So yeah, I mean, fuck, I've just answered your question in the longest way possible, but I'm a personal trainer, online coach. I've got my own coaching app as well. Absolutely love hosting the podcast and getting to meet people like yourself, and that's a world that I've fell in love with and seen a lot of benefit from a business perspective, brand perspective, but probably most importantly just from a people perspective as well, getting to build relationships with really interesting and valuable people, which has been awesome. I also do the programming for the Keep It Cleaner app as well, in the fitness space with Steph Claire Smith, or Steph Miller now, and Laura Henshaw. Yeah, mate, that's a bit about me. That's the longest fucking answer you could possibly have had for that easy question.
I think, to be honest though, I think it's actually a very helpful answer, because it gives a lot to kind of dive off of for today. Knowing the journey myself, that going from the I guess interim process of building a business, being an in-person personal trainer, then to try and transition into online, I think you and I have maybe a unique perspective of this industry, of going through it kind of pre-social media, figuring out how to build a business, and then how to then transition to that and then try and push it to online. It's a big process.
It is.
And I think think you probably agree. There's a lot of people that go through the fitness industry that do end up kind of going down the similar road to you and I, that either go down the mindset or the business development process. And I think often that gets a bit of a bad rap, right? That like, personal trainer, how do you know business?
Mm-hmm.
And I challenge that because I think there's a lot that we would learn, and people that have gone through a very similar thing of building a business in person to then try and transition to a social media place and then into online and so on. I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned in that process that do teach you a lot about real business.
100%. Like, and we were talking about this off air before we hit record, but pretty much everything I do to this day in terms of a business perspective or things that I charge money for or the content I put out, I make a very, specific point of never talking about or trying to monetize anything that I haven't gone through or had experience in myself. Great. I think that's kind of where you're coming from. I think there are a lot of people that sell either programs or put out content and whatnot around the flashy object that's making a lot of money or that's trendy at the moment, but they don't have any experience in themselves. They're kind of recycling content that they've seen.
Yeah.
But man, like, sorry.
No, you're good.
The amount of lessons that I've learned through building a business and making all of the mistakes, like fucking all of the mistakes, right? In person, and then doing basically the same thing online as well. And then the same goes for starting a podcast. And then, I mentioned the mindset and personal development stuff. Like that's something I'm starting to lean into now, but it's not like I just saw the fact that personal development's popular now and I'm going to jump on it. It's like 2017 was like my first little taste of personal development, and over however many of that is 5 years, I think it is.
Yeah.
Over the past 5 years, I've been diving into that every single day, like working on myself. And now I'm just sharing my experiences, and if that can help people, like my whole goal with starting my personal training business is to help people and add value to other people's lives. So I think it's almost selfish of me to not share that with other people when I know the impact it can have on others. So. Yeah. And I'm a big believer in physical and mental health works hand in hand, and I think you would agree. So the physical side of things and getting in shape and training well and eating well and whatnot is super important. But if your head's not in the right place and you're struggling mentally, then it's going to be hard to tie both together. So. I think being able to share our experiences with people to hopefully help people not make the mistakes that we did, or at least be able to share our story and document it, is super powerful. And I'm sure you would be the same. Like I wish, and there were certain people in certain spaces that I looked up to or got a lot of value from in terms of them doing what I'm doing now. Yeah. But I recorded a podcast the other day, a solo episode. I really didn't want to do it. I was I think it was Sunday afternoon. But I was like, it was all around like some advice that I would give to newly qualified trainers or health and fitness professionals. Mm-hmm. And, the only reason I recorded that is because I'm like, fuck, if I was at day one or year one and I was able to listen to a 45-minute audio podcast and hear what I've just shared with them, I would have saved myself, thousands and thousands of dollars, so many hours and a lot of frustration. So it's almost doing a disservice by not sharing it.
I agree. Well, you think back to when did you start personal training?
PT, I was in the gym, like writing programs 2012.
Okay.
But the first, I wasn't able to start my business full time until 2014. Okay. Started 2014.
So you'd be in a similar time period to me. That the only, call it fitness podcast back then was Phil Lerney just talking about like digestion and nutrition. And there was not really any small business podcasts. They didn't really exist, not to my knowledge at least, or podcasts weren't popular. Mm-hmm. And the only way to acquire new knowledge was like from the old dude at the gym that's probably failed 10 times and actually not actually successful. Or your fitness director at the gym that's like taken a secure wage to leave the job.
Yeah.
And to get that acquisition of knowledge was far harder than it is now. Mm-hmm. What's your thought process? Just kind of diving into the whole new PT thought process.
Yep.
What do you think about like the landscape of the new industry where people head into like online coaching without doing that in-person training stuff first? Do you think it's like a sign of the times? Do you think it's necessary? Do you think like, where do you sit with that?
I've got a couple of opinions on it. And, I know at the moment, like within your business, you're not doing any face-to-face stuff but you've got the experience there, right? Like you've been in the trenches, you've got all the work there. Like my personal view on it now is, and again, we're talking about this before, like I'm looking at cutting back my face-to-face hours pretty much as possible to put more time into other things that I feel like can impact even more people. But I myself feel like I'll always keep some form of face-to-face there. And the reason for that is because that is where the content comes from. That's where you see the things that need to, that people are going to want to know. That's where the clients ask you the questions. That's where you learn new things. And it's like being I don't know, like, I just think if you have just finished your qualification and you go straight into being an online PT, I'm like, unless you've already got some huge audience that for some reason you have an audience already, and then they're just willing to buy fucking a bag of dog shit if you sell it, and they're basically going to buy anything you put out. I don't understand how that happens. And like, I don't know, man. I just think you need that experience there. I think one of the biggest and most important aspects of being a personal trainer is understanding people and being able to communicate effectively and efficiently, and being able to change things on the fly as well. And like understanding that everyone is going to be different. Like, I think after you finish your qualification as a personal trainer, or whether you do exercise and sports science at uni, whatever it may be, everything sounds great in theory. A lot of that shit just goes straight out the window as soon as you start face to face, because you're not going to have the person that comes in that is just like
optimal doesn't exist.
There's no such thing. Like, I talk about this all the time. Like, the optimal training program or the optimal nutritional approach is not optimal if it doesn't fit within your lifestyle, or it's not something you're going to stick to, right?
I could rant on this for hours.
Fuck, I agree. Man, seriously, the amount of times I've said that, it's like, so yeah, I don't know. Like, I mean, each to their own. Like, everyone obviously is free to do whatever the fuck they want. I just find that, put it this way, without my experience of doing face-to-face for a long time and getting as much experience as I can across a number of different forms of clients, figuring out what my niche is in terms of training, you know, working with the fucking hard to deal with clients, working with good clients, and again, just building my skill around communication in particular, and networking and understanding people, and also understanding that the training and nutrition side of things as a PT is like a very small percentage of what you do as a trainer. Like, you have the ability to impact someone's life significantly, and that comes down to you being able to, again, understand people, treat people with respect, show that you care, being able to communicate in a way that they will respond best to. Like, not everyone's going to respond great to the fucking commando coach who's yelling at their client to do one more rep, or makes them train their fucking ass off when they come in and they're, you know, maybe emotionally wrecked after a really shit week, or I don't know. Like, there's so many different aspects that come with the face-to-face side of things that I have been able to use, which has then allowed me to build a really good online brand and product online. So I don't see how I wouldn't have been able to do it without the initial face-to-face. But I don't know. What's your opinion?
I actually agree on the point you raised there as far as like content comes from the in-person stuff. I think there's no way around that. And that's something I actually hadn't considered up until like that second. So that's actually like, unless you have the network to kind of just get people, I think that like that holds true really well. I think the only differing opinion I would have is like, the way I look at business and all the skill set I have now is there's not a skill set that I haven't been able to acquire through using and leveraging capital to skip the queue. So for example, rather than doing 3 years of experience of like failing in business, going to spend the money and learn from the person that's done those failures and figure it out and figure it out faster. So I look at the money that goes into being spent into rentals in gyms and like rental models in big box gyms, like average maybe $350 a week.
Yeah.
You spend $350 a week on your personal development in your skill set, like to be a good coach, to learn more empathy, to learn more people skills. You could probably cut the learning curve in half.
Yeah. I do agree with that 100%.
So I think like there's it's probably at the take home point there. If you're going to go into in-person training, you probably need to allocate some cash flow into learning shit too.
Oh, without a doubt. And you know, I've always had a value on that, but I probably wasn't that. I hadn't really identified that or been consciously aware of how much value I did have on that, like across the years, like the amount of seminars or online courses and things like that. And I'm sure you're super familiar with someone like an Alex Hormozi, like the amount of stuff he talks about in terms of, you know, like what seems like a significant amount of money up front to go and do a mentorship or spend an hour with someone who has 15 to 20 years of experience that can save you then in turn probably 2 to 3 times more money than what you've spent on that hour.
Yeah.
Why would you not do that if you're in a financial position to be able to do that?
Or if you just do what we do and just get them on a podcast.
100%. Yeah, exactly right. We were talking about before, like getting these people on the podcast, which is awesome. I mean, obviously you got to aim to be able to offer some value in return.
Of course. But that's life, man. That's the game of business. It's value trading. Exactly
right. And it's being able to be super crafty with how you get that value. And I would imagine you would be the same, but like it's trying to, yes, a lot of these things are transactions, but it's also like I don't want to meet someone who gives offers me a fuckload of value and use them for that hour and then that's the last I ever hear or see from them again. Like the goal is to try and build these relationships, and as I mentioned right at the start, like the importance of networking and building relationships.
Yeah.
If you can get really good at that, like it's insane how much of an impact that can have not only on your business but your life. Like I often talk about some of the best opportunities I've ever had, and a lot of the stuff I'm doing now purely came down to building relationships, whether it was reaching out to someone online without having never met them before, offering them something in return before even asking for anything or anything like that, or having a coffee with someone when you think it's probably going to fucking lead to nothing, or, being a good person to someone for no reason, which is what I think everyone should be doing. It's like, you just never know what will come from these relationships or these conversations and whatnot. So, but yeah, coming back to what you said, obviously I had my view on it, but, with some bit more perspective, I do agree, like 100%, like we're in a time now where like you can go online, and I think this is definitely where people like Gary Vee and stuff talk about, like, is it really worth going to college or uni and all this type of stuff? Because the stuff you're going to learn in there, like shit changes all the time. Like you look at like a social media, I often think about someone who goes and does like marketing at university.
Yeah. And
I just think to myself,
you could learn marketing for half the cost, a quarter of the cost. Yeah.
Why? When and I obviously haven't done it, so I don't know what's in the actual course, but I highly fucking doubt that there's anything in there to do with Instagram or TikTok or fucking, how to do paid ads and all. Like I'm sure maybe I don't know, maybe there is, but if there is, it
wouldn't be, again, it comes back to cutting the learning curve. If you were just on the job, if you were just learning from a marketer, like, because probably the person teaching marketing has learned marketing 60 years ago. Like, you're in a bit of a fucking pickle.
Yeah. My brother, for example, he started his degree at university doing marketing or advertising or whatever, and he pulled out after like 2 months.
Yep.
Now he runs he's like head of marketing at Oodie, and his whole learning experience was exactly that, getting a job, being like right down the bottom of the rank, right down the bottom of the barrel in terms of just getting experience, like on the fly, learning on the go.
Yeah.
He started his own e-commerce business, and he's learned from experience, and there you go.
And that's exactly, that's like a 4-year speed run in like what, a couple of years?
Yeah. And a fuckload of money saved too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And probably a fuckload of money made too. So
yeah,
like
exactly,
it's the other side of the coin too. I think with like my probably, I guess, summary of the process of what my opinion would be in that regard is like, what would I do now if I was coming into the industry when I didn't have to pay rent? I could go learn all the information. I could start a business within an hour and be live and then start selling a product. What would I do? Like, I don't really blame people for going into the online model without the experience.
Yeah.
I still think you should go pay to get the experience.
Yep.
But I don't have any qualms with the process of, well, just jumping into the deep end and like trying to sell your shit.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, again, eventually you can sell anything. It's just whether people are going to buy it again and again. So you can put a price tag on your dog shit, right? And it's fine. People might buy it, but if it's crap, they won't buy it again.
No,
so you have to, there's no lifetime value. So you have to like get good and pay the money to get good. But I think like diving in and just like selling your stuff and like actually getting the experience, there's a lot of ways to do it that doesn't necessarily mean time for money anymore.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Where did your kind of journey shift from like the in-person trainer to the guy that started one of the first fitness podcasts, especially here in Australia, that like really took off? Like, where was that transition and what sparked it?
I'd started doing some online stuff, as I mentioned before. Like, it was initially just people that, like, reaching out. So my own kind of fitness journey, and again, I kind of talked about how I just always documented like my own stuff through social media. I haven't always been someone who's tried to create really cool stuff online. It's literally been like, oh, I did this. This is what happened. Blah blah blah. Like, so like when I moved to Melbourne, I was like exact same height as I am now, and I was about 20 to 25 kilos less.
Wow.
And up until that point, I'd been training for like 2 or 3 years with the goal of building mass, right? So once I started, after, investing in myself to do these courses and seminars with people who had the experience, and I started putting that all together and eating correctly and training efficiently and whatnot for what suited me, and started seeing really good results. I just had people reaching out online through social media and whatnot, and even people that I'd spent like my whole schooling life with. I was like, what the fuck? Like, how are you doing this?
Yeah.
So I just started helping people out in that regard in terms of writing programs and doing some nutritional advice stuff around that. that started to grow, and then that's how the online developed. But what year was it? So 2016, at the end of 2016, I think I started the pod. The very start of 2016, I got a book for Christmas by Robin Sharma. It was The Greatness Guide, one of his books, The Greatness Guide. And I fucking hate reading. So, well, I like it now, but up until that point, I'd never really read a book unless I was forced to. But I read this book and I literally finished it in like a day or two. And by the end of it, it was like one of those kind of like aha moments. I was like, holy shit, like I feel really good after reading this book. There's stuff in here that I've never thought about before. And there's things I know I can implement straight away, which I've already felt is going to make I can just tell it's going to make a big difference on my life. And I was obviously in the personal development space. And then after that, I started consuming more of his content. And then I found podcasts somehow, and I was listening to a number of them. I believe at the time it was like, I could be completely wrong here, but I feel like it was like Lewis Howes. I'd also read, after I read the Robin Sharma one, I read the 10X Rule by Grant Cardone, which is another one which I've read 4 or 5 times, listened to the audiobook on repeat. And I think it was Grant Cardone that once mentioned in either his audiobook or his podcast, something along the lines of like, why wait until tomorrow to do something that can be done today? Particularly if it's something that you have been procrastinating for a long period of time. And obviously the 10X Rule is very much so like action. So I was like, fuck, I'd had in my notes like a rough idea of what I wanted to do with the podcast, because as I started listening to him, like barely anyone I even talked to knew what one was. Yeah. And I'd searched up to see where there was any health and fitness ones that were popular. There was a couple, but none really in Australia. I think there was maybe 1 or 2 from supplement companies or something, which is super early for a supplement company to do that. But I was like, all right, I'd been very consistent with Instagram, with YouTube, and it had grown a lot, but there wasn't a great deal of traction in comparison for the time I was putting in. So I was like, all right, well, how can I get my message out there in a more effective way? Basically doing what I'm already doing, just on a different platform. And yeah, I'd kind of heard that bit of a quote, and I was like, fuck, all right. I went on Google, typed in how to start a podcast. By the end of that day, I'd recorded like 2 or 3 episodes and submitted it to iTunes. Yeah. And yeah, ever since then, it's just, like I said, I put out an episode every single week. It's evolved so much since then. And it was a skill that I did not have. Like, they were fucking horrendous. And like, you know, like at the start, I think like the biggest lesson I took from that is like, and I've used that and moving forward as well, is like not waiting until I feel like is the right time, or not waiting until I feel like I'm ready. It's just like, just jump in, learn on the fly, similar to what we've already been talking about today. And yeah, I managed to, it was, what surprised me is like I had this podcast, and I think it was because podcasts were kind of like not really a thing. Yeah. I was reaching out to guests who had no business saying yes to me. Yeah. And I was getting like these big guests on the show. But the thing was, like, I was getting these guests on, I was doing some solo episodes and starting to, you know, work on the craft of podcasting and talking into a mic and getting comfortable with that. And I had some decent growth initially, and then for probably 12 to 18 months, like no shit, like that long of a time, the growth pretty much just plateaued. So like the numbers had grown a bit, and then the downloads just like stayed the same for a long time. Yeah. And
how did you handle that?
Well, it was interesting because, you know, like I don't even think we talked about this before on air, but like with my basketball career in particular, like I was very fortunate to play some like really high level basketball, have some awesome opportunities. And I was definitely, you know, in my opinion, like in like that top % of players. But in saying that, I was also in the bottom % of that top %. So like I missed out on so many teams, like whether it be, you know, state sides, whether it be selection for anything and everything. Like I was kind of I suffered so many setbacks and, you know, cut from teams, missing selections, not getting minutes in games, like just so many fucking disappointments as an athlete that for some reason, and I don't know why I had this mindset as an athlete, but it just never it fazed me, but it never deterred me from showing up and putting into work. And that was what taught me a lesson early on of how important consistency and hard work was, regardless of where I am right now. If I want to get from where I am now to where I want to be, you know, fucking sooking about not making a team or doing fuck all or whatever is not going to get me there. But being extremely consistent, being willing to work harder than anyone else, and just continuing to show up is what allowed me to get from, you know, missing teams completely to then getting to a point where I was at a really good standard of basketball and I'd improved a lot. And I think that's what taught me that kind of like almost like a fuck you attitude of like, you can cut me from any team. You can give me as many setbacks as you want, but I'm going to keep turning up. I'm going to keep showing up, and I'm going to be consistent. And I knew that, you know, to get from where I was to where or even from where I was to where I am now, one of the biggest factors has been consistency. So I was like, I think on the other side of that, I'd recently started listening to Russ, the rapper Russ.
Yeah.
And I just love his story, and a lot of his backstory comes from exactly that. Like, no one listening to his shit, him putting out a song every single week and then blowing the fuck up.
Yeah.
And his whole mindset was like, if I had this catalog of songs that I've been working on like for the last few years, when I eventually blow up, because he had the self-belief that he would, I have all these songs here now. And for me, I was like, all right, well, I'm just going to keep putting out stuff every single week. If anything, as we've spoke about already, I'm benefiting from having these guests on. I'm learning so much every single time I have a guest. And the people that are listening, I think Gary Vee says it a lot. It's like people talk about having like 500 followers on Instagram, but imagine standing in a room with 500 people. Obviously now
that actually care about what you say.
And obviously now their fucking algorithms are fucked, so probably 5 of that 500 to see them anyway. But like I was under that impression. I'm like, all right, well, I just want to make sure that every social media post, every podcast I put out impacts at least one person, then I've done my job. And I just kept doing that, and then obviously keep tweaking it, keep getting better at podcasting, kept understanding how to improve my communication skills with guests and getting bigger guests on, putting out content that I knew people wanted to hear about, and it just started to grow. And that's kind of what happened. Like, it's still by no means where I want it to be, but the only reason why it is where it is now, like we're pushing pretty much on 4 million downloads, which I know that's over a longer period of time, but if you had said that to me then, I was like, I would have been like, no fucking chance. So that I just stuck with it, and then started to gain some traction. And you know, now I'm literally having people like message me or email me saying like they took so much value from this episode, and that was from like 3 years ago.
That's wild.
So if I'd have just stopped or waited until I got better at podcasting, or waited until I got a better microphone or better equipment and stuff, then who knows like whether the show would have done anything. So I'm super glad I did, but I think that mindset literally came from the amount of setbacks and failures and rejection I'd had early on, which has built like this mindset of like, I don't really give a fuck how many times someone says no, or how many times I get rejected, or what people think. I'm just going to keep going.
I think in today's day and age, man, like with instant gratification where it's at, and just the way people see change and expect it to be so quick, that especially in that time period, man, like when social media was probably just kind of algorithms were better and shit was popping off, like you would have been forgiven to think shit was going to move fast.
Yeah,
and
I did.
Like, I think it's like, I can speak to that as well. Like anytime that you like go through a process of business where shit's slow, that's the stuff you anchor to later down the track, and like you just got to keep going.
Yeah,
just got to keep pushing through. Exactly
right. And it's also in that time period as well, like although I had the mindset of like I just have to be consistent, it's going to happen, it was also like, all right, well, there's also maybe a reason why more people aren't listening. So it was also identifying the fact that, you know, there are certain skills within the podcast that I need to get better at, or I need to be more of myself in these episodes and show more of my personality. Or I need to, maybe it was increasing the quality of the mic, or whatever it may be, changing up the style of the episodes and stuff. So I think there's two things with that. One, you need to be able to, take feedback and use it. And also be willing to identify and accept the fact that maybe you're just fucking not good at something if it's not working out and something needs to change. But also then having that resilience of like, stop expecting shit to happen overnight. And even, you know, to an extent, like don't put a time frame on where you want to see these results, because let's say I did want it to happen in, you know, very shit example. Let's say I wanted to get to X amount of listeners in 6 months and it hadn't happened. Even if I got to that in 12 months, like I've still hit my target, but for that 6 extra months, I would have hated the whole journey because I hadn't achieved my goal. Whereas if it's like you just, you know, the cliche, trust the process and keep turning up and honing in on your skills with whatever it may be and making tweaks when you need to, and shit happens.
At what point, I'm curious.
I hope you can swear on this podcast, too, otherwise you guys are going to have a very hard time.
Trust me, you're fine. At what point, because I'm curious, I think that most people in the fitness industry don't actually get to this point. So I'm curious if, like, when you did, or if you did, when did you realize that you're a real business? Like, I think a lot of people start their terms of like, I'm just a personal trainer.
Mm.
At what point did you realize you actually were not just a business person, but had the potential to grow one business, multiple businesses, and so on? What's going on, everyone? Hope you're well. I won't keep you too long. I know you're hopefully enjoying the podcast. And if you are, let us know. It would be really greatly appreciated if you can jump on, give us a quick 5-star review. You don't even need to stop listening to the show. If you're on Spotify, you can do it in less than 10 seconds. And it does help the show grow a lot. It helps us, get a bit of confirmation bias that we're doing the right thing. And just to say thank you, if you guys do that, we're going to be picking one person every month to guest spot on the podcast that has shared, liked, commented, subscribed, and interacted with what we do. Big thank you. Let's get back to it.
Again, a lot of these lessons came from guys like Grant Cardone.
Amazing.
Even Gary Vee to an extent, but Grant Cardone and that 10X rule literally was a massive game changer for me. And that completely changed my life, particularly around the idea of business and potential for growth in all areas. And I can't pinpoint exactly like what content it was, but I kind of figured out very early on that I can't just, like I say this all the time to people, if I was just a PT, and this is not a knock against anyone listening who's just a PT, like when I say just a PT, I mean like that's your only income stream or revenue stream, whatever. There's no way I would do it. Like for me, because it's so inconsistent. There's so many highs and lows. Like you're relying on other people constantly.
Yeah, you got 50 bosses.
Your growth relies on other people, right? So I just said to myself, all right, I want to make sure that I've got multiple revenue streams. And I don't want to, I really want to, I'm shit with words, which we said before. What's the diversify? There we go. I wanted to diversify. Obviously I had my face-to-face stuff, which I was loving. I then just organically moved into the online space as well, which I was really enjoying. I was trying to grow an audience on social media, and over time that did start to happen, which was awesome. I was then in 2017 started with Keep It Cleaner. Like when the girls started the app, I'd been with them since kind of day one. So that was another little kind of avenue. So I had face-to-face, online, then the podcast, social media, which I guess you could call like influencing, I guess you could say, Keep It Cleaner. And then I was like, all right, well, I was spending time, like I was very fortunate when I started personal training, it was in Albert Park. So a lot of my clients were like high-end business people. So not only am I getting the opportunity to spend time with people on the podcast, but I'm spending like multiple hours every week with high-end business people. I'm just picking their brain. I'm like going hard in terms of like, all right, I'm making the most of this time with this person. Like obviously I'm going to help them get results, but I'm just going to ask them as much shit as I can and learn as much as I can. So, that was when I just started to look in as many ways as I possibly could, but being very cautious of not stepping outside of my lane in terms of like, I wanted to stay true to my message. So I didn't want to go for any quick cash grabs. I didn't want to, be pulled in the direction of the next shiny object if it had nothing to do with what my message was and what my purpose was of helping more people. So in that regard, like probably in the last couple of years, I've had a lot of growth and broadened my perspective on that side of things in terms of, all right, I need to also prioritize like investing money in other things that have nothing to do with what I do, but learning that, which has also been a big learning curve.
It's the hardest thing about growth, man, because like the bigger things get, the bigger the opportunities that distract you are.
Exactly right.
Fucking hard.
It is fucking hard, but once I got to that point, and to be perfectly honest, I think the thing that really taught me that I had a business is when I just got smacked in the face by not understanding tax.
I was about to say, was that tax? Because that was mine as well.
Fucking hell, man! Like it
ruined me.
it ruined me. Tell you that. So that was one of the things that really ruined me. And I guess the other part, like, so that was one of them, and that was probably the main one.
Yeah,
but I also like, I have this love for LA. Like I love being in LA. And once I got to the point where I saw that there was massive potential in the online space, I'm like, all right, I'm going to take a really uncomfortable leap here. And I just booked, I think the first year was 2017. I booked like a month in LA.
Yeah, sick.
And just got an Airbnb, doubled down on content, doubled down on podcasts, doubled down on online coaching. And I probably didn't make money. I probably broke even for the month of being there, maybe even lost money and used some savings to be there. But I was like, fuck, there is potential for me to have so much more freedom than just being in the gym all year, all week, every day. And I was like, right, I need to make sure that I'm investing as much money and time as I can into understanding how business works, how I can leverage my time better so I'm not trading time for money all the time. Look at different possibilities in terms of different options within the business. So is it, like, I don't know, is it selling products within the business with like journals? Is it creating some form of merchandise? Is it leveraging, with the podcast, I didn't do an advertisement at all for like, I think 250 or 300 episodes. It was just purely just putting out really good content and building trust with the audience.
Yep.
But, now it's like, all right, well, I have a really big audience. As long as my advertising on the show is aligned with my brand and my message, then it's just a way for me to, again, stop trading time for money and free up more time to be able to put it into, diversifying again where I'm investing my time and money, or being able to have an impact with more people because I've been able to, save more time because I've been able to profit from the podcast, whatever it is. But it was a fine, business definitely doesn't come natural to me. And
that's interesting.
It definitely doesn't. Not even slightly, to be perfectly honest. And it's funny because my parents, they had their own business growing up, but I never really showed any real interest in understanding that whatsoever. It was definitely just learning on the fly, but it's definitely become a passion of mine. I absolutely love it now.
I think that's why I say it's interesting, man, because that's evident. It's evident that it's a passion. Yeah. It's just if it doesn't come natural, it's I wonder where it comes from.
Yeah, I think it was again, just making those mistakes, but then also seeing that anytime I identify something that I'm not good at, but it's something that I want to get, I'm more than okay with understanding that, I'm fucking shit at tennis. I don't care. I'm not going to go and spend a week playing.
You're not going to go 10x your tennis skills.
Oh, I'm not going to. But if it's something that if I identify that by me putting in time and effort and investing in myself that I can get better at over time, then I really double down on that. And I don't know, I feel like my approach, it's very funny. My approach has gone from the mental and physical approach I took with being an athlete and playing football and basketball, then transitioned across to building a business within the health and fitness space, which has then transitioned into learning about business, which has then transitioned into the podcast and now the personal development stuff. It's I don't know, I think it comes down to one, it has to be it's your choice. I just feel you make the choice in terms of what attitude or what work ethic you bring every single day and where you're going to be placing your time. And that's what I've kind of chosen to do. And I just enjoy it. I don't know. You seem the same, man. I feel like we've got a lot in common in that
Seems
space. I don't know whether business comes supernatural to you or not.
So I'm on the opposite end. My parents, no business acumen at all.
Yeah.
And I never showed any ability to work for someone else. I was always very business, okay, how do I do my own thing? And I have no idea where the fuck it came from.
Well, that's something that we have in common because I fucking couldn't, the only time I had some shitty jobs when I was still in school and stuff. And then I was kind of subcontractor, I guess you could say. But I've always had an issue with that as well. I don't know whether it's issue with authority. I don't know what it is, but I'm very much the same in that respect, but does not come natural to me in terms of fucking pretty much anything to do with business, but I just love it.
Where did that shift come from you then? As far as moving from someone that's just functioning in a business to actually running one and really diving into the mindset of a business owner?
Probably again from the mistakes.
Yeah.
The tax being the first one, but then also seeing
what's some of the bigger mistakes you've had to deal with, bro? What's some of the big things that stood out that were actually transformative?
Big things that have stood out. I feel like I'm trying to identify a few things because I feel like there's been a lot, but one thing that kind of stands out is I don't even know what caused it or what gave me the perspective, but there was a period in time where I saw how much time and effort I had put into what I was passionate about and realized how much I had left on the table in terms of a business perspective type of thing.
So drive passion too far.
Yeah, and one quality that I have as a person, which is a good thing in some regard, but sometimes very shit in business, is that I'm almost too kind, right? So I was running things more so from passion and opportunity and relationship side of things too much to the point where I was fucking myself over from a business perspective. And I worked with a business coach in 2020 or 2021. and kind of said to him, I'm like, look, man, and he said it to me. He's like, I'm going to be super honest with you right from the start, and I'm going to say a lot of shit you're not going to want to hear. And a lot of it was around that. And that was a big, big eye opener for me in terms of, I already felt like I'd become like a business person. I'd already felt like I'd become someone who was intrigued in business and running business properly and whatnot. But that period in time was like, you know, like it was like fucking, you think you're running a business, but you're not. Like, these are the things that you are not doing. And if you were doing them, this is the difference it could have on your business. And that's when I was like, shit. So even over the past 12 to 18 months, that's been something that I've had to really put a lot of time and effort into. And, you know, I talk about it a lot in terms of getting uncomfortable, you know, doing things that make you uncomfortable. But I was doing a lot of things that didn't make me uncomfortable, but not from the business perspective. So that's something I've had to really, really look at. And I think I almost got to the point where I tied my identity too much around the fact that I was passionate about the fitness industry and what I did and helping people, to the point where I undervalued how much I could help people, and I undervalued my own time.
Did you struggle with like raising your prices when the time came?
Oh, bro, 100%.
Yeah.
Like
really
to give you an idea, like I had clients in. So when did I say business coach was the start of 2021 or end of 2020?
Yep.
I had clients that were paying their rate that they were paying. They'd been with me since 2014 and they were paying the same rate.
Yeah.
But then I had clients who had started, you know, after them or that year, who were paying more than double for their session. But because I had a good relationship with this person and, you know, I liked them and I knew they liked me and I felt like they'd been loyal to me, I was like, there's no way I can do that. So that was something that I found really hard. And to this day, it's definitely something that does not come natural to me in terms of having those conversations or being really strict with it.
Yeah.
But it's a transformative thing and something that needed to be done.
Yeah. And I think it's like, I don't think there's a business owner that doesn't struggle with that. Like especially those OG clients that have been with you fucking forever. It's a hard conversation, but like the penny drop moment for me, there's only two ways to get free money in business: charge more for the same thing for the people that already pay you, or cut off expenses.
Yep.
And if you can't cut down any more expenses, and let's say you've got low or slower acquisition, you got one option.
Yeah. And, you know, from the personal development stuff that I've done, that was a big thing for me as well, is changing a lot of these mental paradigms.
Yeah, like the self-limiting beliefs.
Self-limiting beliefs, man. Like, in terms of like law of attraction and all that, and vibrational frequencies and stuff as well. If I am willing to allow someone to come and train with me for free or train with me for this amount of money, why the fuck would I expect to be attracting clients that are willing to pay me more?
Yeah.
If my standards are here. So, you know, I put out some content last week around raising your standards. It's like, you have to be extremely disciplined with your own standards as a person and what you allow in and what you don't allow in, and the conversations you're having, where you're spending your time, the people you're allowing to be within your life, the places you're allowing yourself to go. If you can get to that point and then you start vibrating on a much higher frequency, that's when you start to attract the more things. But you cannot expect to have this certain life if you are still allowing other aspects on a much lower vibrational frequency to happen.
Yeah, man. It's like, I look at it from a fold of three, right? So you've got like global beliefs that are instilled into us from like essentially the world we live in. Then we've got like personal beliefs that come from like our family, our friends, our environment, and then you've got self-belief. And it all flows from this global belief system. But the problem is people believe it all to be true. Just because you believe it, it's like, doesn't mean it's fucking true. And if you believe your value is lower, that's where you're going to stay. Where are you going to stay?
Yeah, I heard someone say something really good the other day, and I'm horrible at saying, so 100% fuck it up. But it was like, always question your beliefs, especially the ones that you don't think to question.
Fucking oath. Yes. Yeah, man. Like, I think that goes with outside of business in general, life. Yeah,
and that's one of the biggest benefits I've seen from becoming a lot more self-aware for, you know, and everyone, the vehicle to get to this point is probably going to be different for everyone. But for me, it's been being able to improve my skill of doing meditation. It's being able to get extremely honest with myself in terms of journaling, and even things from like doing breath work and actually being open to really stripping down myself as a person and being honest with myself and trying to, and not just suppressing all the things or or avoiding all the things that I know need work. And that self-limiting belief and doing work on, like shadow work and all that type of stuff is difficult to do, but it will literally change your life.
Yeah.
And if you, again, it's like expecting to get somewhere, but at the same time also having a very, very clear understanding that there is something that that you are still doing or not doing, which is blocking you from getting there, but then being disappointed with the result. It's like, well, it's up to you.
It's funny when you put it like that. It's very logical, but then you look at you get people to try and explain that it's like all the emotion clouds judgment.
Yes,
so there's all these fucking excuses and problems. It's like, well, I can't do that. Well, you fucking can.
It's exactly right. And I mean, I don't know whether I can't remember whether we've been talking about it live or this is beforehand, but
whatever.
Fucking shocking memory. But even within my business now, like identity, getting tied down to a certain identity can be a very dangerous thing.
Agree.
So I struggled going from being a basketballer to then quitting basketball after putting every fucking part of my whole entire life to becoming a basketballer. That was very hard to do. Then I stepped into the fitness space. Then I started competing and shit, which was...
That's an identity in itself as well.
Exactly right. Yeah. And then I kind of stepped away from that, right? But then even lately, like having all this self-awareness around identity shifts and being too tied to certain things, or having an understanding that just because I'm a basketballer or just because I'm a bodybuilder or just because I'm a podcaster does not mean that's who I am. It's what I do, right? But then also lately struggling to fucking understand that it's okay for me to step into a different space like personal development and step away from certain fitness aspects because I'm thinking everyone just knows me as a personal trainer or a fitness trainer. What the fuck? What's going to happen if I stop doing it? Or what's going to happen if I cut off this part of my business that I've spent the last 10 years trying to build up? But if it stops serving its purpose and it's not something that is really lighting me up or where my energy is aligned, and it's going to hold me back anyway. It's like a block or resistance that needs to be worked through anyway. So it's hard to do, but I think that's where like not trying to stay as neutral as possible and not getting attached to something, which is fuckload easier said than done.
Yep.
But that's a very powerful thing as well. It's like use things for a vehicle for whatever your purpose is or whatever your mission is at that time without getting too attached to it to the point where you're subconsciously just doing it because you're attached your identity to doing that thing, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Have you heard of a thing called pendulum theory?
No.
Okay. It's essentially a theory of like the way life works, and it's like our most natural process as humans to swing into this pendulum, where that when there is positivity, we swing all this way up on this fucking huge positive swing. And then what happens with the pendulum, it comes back down to that negative. We struggle as humans to find that point of neutral. Just stop it in the middle and go, well, let's just fucking assess it as it is, rather than get super happy or super sad about it and get invested into the outcome. Let's just deal with the now.
Yeah.
And it's like pendulum theory, when you apply it to life, it's like, well, you already know you're going to swing up. So predict the swing, you swing down, try and pre-predict the swing back to neutral. Find it. Find 3 steps ahead on that neutral, and you'll be able to make better decisions.
Yeah, it's much easier said than done. I used to be a lot further back on the scale in terms of I would get super high with the highs and low with the lows. And now, but then on the other hand, and I'd love to hear what your perspective is on this. It's also hard not to then go to the other extreme where you're not even acknowledging some incredible things, right? Or it's like you're not stopping. I think there's a fine line between being extremely driven and passionate and making sure you're consistently moving forward and keeping the momentum, but then also being able to go like, hey, fuck, I've just...
Stop and smell the roses a little bit. Yeah,
like you've just opened this incredible gym with amazing equipment. You've got an amazing podcast studio and blah, blah, blah. If you think back to 3-5 years down, prior, this would just be like, what the fuck? There's no chance.
Yeah, but it's like funny. It's funny you say that, man. I actually had the first time I've had like a slow moment was yesterday in a long fucking time. We hired 2 people in the same day yesterday, and it's the first time I've ever hired someone, like not only hired 2 people in sequence, whatever. In sequence.
I'm not the person to ask about.
Yeah, I'm dyslexic, so I fucking got no clue. In sequence, it's the first time we've ever hired 2 people at the same time.
Yep.
Which for me was like a bit of I got home last night, I was like, fuck, we're actually in a position where we can hire 2 people at the same time rather than hire one by one and fill them as we go. It's just like, no, we're good. We can fill 2 now.
Yeah. And that awesome.
it was a big moment where I was like, actually had a bit of a cry, bro. I was like sitting there, I was like, fuck, this is fucking cool, but it's scary.
It's scary, but I think you need to do that because then it also comes back to like, again, on like that vibrational frequency thing, right?
Yeah.
It's like, if you don't even acknowledge the fact that you have leveled, like that's a huge level up for you as a person and as a business. So by acknowledging it and sitting in that, then all your actions from that are now at that standard, coming back to the standards I talked about before. It's like, all right, well, you've just raised the standard now. So then everything else now has to be on that standard to then move to the next. But if you just go, oh yeah, that's really cool, but I'm still operating from this standard or this frequency down here.
Yeah.
Then you're still like 2 steps away from where you want to be instead of being on that next level up, if that makes sense.
And you're always going to be chasing your tail too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
How have you, I'm interested because you've gone through a bunch of identity shifts of what it seems like. How did you cope with them and how have you gotten better at it?
I think I became aware of the fact that, you know, people in my life or the things that I have in my life or you know, whatever, it has not come down to, it's not because of what I do.
Mm-hmm.
It's because of me as a person. So if I feel like I can continue to become a better person and show who I am as a person, and not, you know, and be truly authentic to who I am, then the people that I've got in my life or whatever, it's not because of the fact that I'm a personal trainer. It's not because of the fact that I was a basketballer. It's because it's me. It's like who I am. But I think it is still quite difficult, but I've just gotten better at not attaching myself to something too much.
What are some tips you could give some people, bro? I think this is something that's really common. Business, life, general, even relationships.
Yeah.
Like people tie identities to people.
Yeah.
Like what's some things, like a few take home points that you could actually like recommend people try and implement?
I think it's not understanding that it's not selfish to put yourself first and your interests first. Like let's say in a relationship, right? And I'm fucking not giving any relationship advice because trust me, I'm not the person to ask, but if all you do is try and please your partner and that's not who you genuinely are authentically as a person, then over time you're going to build resentment towards your partner because they've taken you away from who you are and you're never going to truly be happy. They're going to have this unrealistic standard. You're then basically going to have to play the role of this person for the rest of your life or until the relationship ends and you're not going to be happy. I just think on the authenticity piece, it's like, what I do now is, whether it's through social media, whether it's with friends or in my relationship, it's like I just try and make sure that I'm as open as possible about the things that I want to do or that I enjoy doing and share those without any fucks given about what anyone else thinks.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you start playing into being a people pleaser or doing things purely out of what you think other people will accept from you, then it's a very slippery slope. Yep. So I don't even know how to put this into words to give advice. So apologies because I'm not really giving any advice, but I've just found that by being truly authentic to myself, understanding that, you know, if there are people that have an issue with like what I'm doing or if I picked up tomorrow and said, all right, fuck it, I'm not a personal trainer anymore. I don't want to be. I want to do fucking this instead. I want to be in IT.
Yep. A ballet dancer.
Yeah, sure. If I lost like friends or if I had relationships that broke down because of that, then that just is a very clear indicator that they weren't there for the right reasons anyway. So I think it's having enough self-respect and enough self-worth to understand that you don't need anyone else to be yourself.
Yeah.
You don't need anyone else to allow you to be happy or whatever. So in a relationship, again, for example, it's like the other person should supplement you as a person as well. Like they should be able to elevate you and allow you to be the best version of yourself. And if they don't, whether that's a friend, whether that's a business partner, whether it's a loving partner, whatever it may be, then it's just not the right choice.
Yeah.
I don't think I've answered the question, but
no, I think you have, man. I think knowing that, like, I think just that point there of like, you don't have to have other people's approval to be you. And if your identity shifts and you feel that and that's authentic to you, like fucking do it, change it.
Yeah. But otherwise you'll genuinely spend all of your time. It's impossible to be 100% happy or feel 100% at peace or accept what your life is if you're doing it because of someone else, or if you're doing it to fit in, or if you're doing it because that's what you are supposed to be doing, type of thing. And it's super noticeable. Like going back again to talking about this personal development stuff, like I again, talking about the mentors, like I paid a mentor not too long ago. And she's amazing. Like we had this conversation, and it was almost like I just needed to have it reaffirmed to me that, like, all right, there's certain parts of my business that I've been doing over the past couple of years, which I worked really hard to build, which I now no longer find any joy from doing, or they are not something that I wake up super excited to do.
Mm-hmm.
So by letting go of those, that's a huge like release of like resistance that goes away from my life like straight away. And yes, it may mean that for a short period of time you lose a bit of income or whatever, but who gives a fuck about making money if it's something that it's like you genuinely don't find joy from?
And if you don't find joy from it, you're probably not going to do the best job of it.
Exactly. To me, it's like almost fraud.
Yeah, fucking oath.
I'm not doing that person. I'm not doing the paying customer or client a service by not giving them 100% of what they should be getting, because my head is not fully in it. So instead of doing that, it's like, all right, what is going to allow me to kind of put my 100% energy into it?
Mm-hmm.
And it's been identifying that, which a lot of it I already kind of knew, but because it wasn't part of the identity thing, it's like, all right, well, just follow where the good energy is in terms of what really lights you up to do.
Yep.
And that is most likely the right choice, regardless of whether it logically seems like the right choice or traditionally it's the right path to go down, or what everyone else is telling you to do, or what everyone else in your industry does.
Yeah.
If it doesn't feel good to you, then it's not the right choice.
I think that's what really stipulates like a quote unquote good business owner, a good entrepreneur, is someone that can challenge the status quo and, you know, go against the norm, and settle with that, and like actually sit into it and go like, oh no, this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
And this is where I'm going to go.
Exactly.
And figures it out on their way.
Yeah. And becoming like super decisive.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I think, like I told you I'm shit at saying, but like even like for someone like yourself, I don't know if this is like an approach that you take. It's like, you know, what is it? Higher, fast, fire, slow. It's
I
like
literally did a podcast on it 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I literally that was the title.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's like being able to be that confident about the path that you're on or where your energy is going, that your decisions are like, I think very strong in your decisions.
The way I see it is like, so Hormozy said this, is so speed is king, and if we know that to be true, time kills all deals. It has to be fast.
Yeah.
You have to make shit quick. You have to like lean into your process.
Yeah.
If that's what you want, you fucking back it and you go.
Yeah.
And you problem solve later.
Yeah.
Like time kills all deals. And I think that's like, if same goes when it comes to this identity shift. If you feel it, like, and it's this thing that keeps kind of chirping up.
There's a reason for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'd be better off just going fast. Like that's exactly why I stepped out of coaching, man. Like it didn't make sense from a cash flow perspective for me to step out and transition them through to the rest of the people in the business. Because at the time they were subcontractors, weren't capped earnings. So it's like they were going to get paid for taking more people.
Yep.
Cash flow was going to be negatively impacted by me like transitioning all these people.
Yep.
And I woke up every morning being like, fuck, I don't want to do check-ins.
Yeah.
Like this is like, I love business. I love coaching like small businesses. I love that shit. And it lights me the fuck up.
Yeah.
Working with people talking fitness, as much as like the fitness industry has kind of been we'll call it's been the path that I've been able to walk. It's been the thing that's led me here.
It's the vehicle that you used to get here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's no longer the thing that like actually, it's not the vehicle I want to drive anymore. It's not fun.
Yeah. And that's fine.
Yeah. It was hard though.
100%, man. Yeah. I can completely understand that. But even when you talk about, you know, the stuff that lights you up now, it's easy to tell.
Yeah.
You know? And as we said before, it's almost like at a very extreme level, it's almost a form of fraud by someone paying you or paying me to give them a service that they're expecting to get, and they are getting the service, but they're expecting to get 100% of me.
Yeah.
Or they're expecting to get the best level of me. And if I am not my best level, then how the fuck can I be okay with the fact that I'm charging someone to give them
probably
a
premium price too? Like,
yeah, exactly right. And yeah, it's a very difficult thing, but good shit comes from difficult decisions.
I agree, man. What's some take home things that you think you could impart some wisdom on some small business owners that are, you know, kind of going through the process of scale? What are some things that you think like take home points that like really would help them get through either the tough times or what's to come?
I think, look, I don't even know like how well qualified I would be to answer this, but this is my opinion on this. Like a very hard thing, particularly if this business has been like your baby, or you started out as a solopreneur, or this is something that you've built up very slowly, is understanding that it's okay to not be the best at everything in your business, and get comfortable with kind of delegating things to other people who can do a far greater job than you in a much shorter period of time. If that means that the investment in paying them to do that service or to do that task that would have taken you a fucking long time allows you the time back to put into what you are good at, which will then in turn grow and expand the business or scale the business a lot quicker than what it would have if you had to save yourself some money but then spent all this time. Like if you, I don't know, that's probably one of the easiest ones there. I think understanding that you're, again, on the standards level, like having your standards and your values within your business or your company that you don't stray from, regardless of whether it feels like it's a quicker or safer option to do something else. Because as soon as the cracks start, then they're very hard to stop. And as you continue to scale and expand, if those cracks have been there from, you know, the second or third staff member in or second or third kind of phase of growth, then they're only going to get bigger as you go because it's too hard to go back. So being willing to take a step back or for things to go a little slower without straying from what your values and standards are within the business or the company itself. I think something that probably doesn't relate as much to scaling the business, but something I think is super important is getting extremely good at telling your story as a business or a company in the way of content. So whether that's documenting the growth of the business, whether that's documenting the daily in terms of inside your business as well, and just keeping it as relatable as possible, but also having that documentation of the journey there, I think is super important. And then if it's a client, if it's a service-based business or whatnot as well, it's like you'd be surprised at how interested or intrigued people will be at being able to see not just the final product of what you're offering, but also like the behind the scenes and understanding your story and really showing like authentically like everything, the highs and the lows, and being vulnerable. The power of vulnerability is like so underrated, I think.
I agree. I fully agree. Every time we've been vulnerable in business, tenfold payback. Bro,
100%. And just not enough. I get it, it's uncomfortable, but I don't understand. Like, I had this conversation with a client this morning. My client literally said to me, I don't know if this is an insult or not, but he was literally like, the reason why, because his wife got him to come and train with me. And he was like, I think the reason why she liked your podcast and why she sent me to you is because like she saw that like you fuck up and like you're not perfect and you know you're just normal like everyone else, and like you have shit days, you know you're not always motivated, and you know you swear or you have a drink on the weekend or whatever it may be. It's like there's a time and place obviously for people to aspire to an end result or to where they want to be at. That's only natural, and obviously that's all part of it. And I think that should be a component. But also at the same time, if your audience or your clients or whatever, whoever you're targeting cannot relate in any way, shape or form to the content you are sharing, then what the fuck? Like, it's going to boost your ego a little bit when you see the likes go up or if engagement's good. But if the goal is to build the business or scale the business, then what good is a few likes on Instagram if you're not attracting the right people? Yeah. You're not leveraging it. But yeah, man, I don't know. I don't know. I'm sure you've got better advice than me.
No, bro. I think everyone has.
I don't have staff, so it's probably not my area of expertise. But
I think anecdotally, man, you've gone through enough stuff, bro. I think that's great advice. I think you've gone through a lot of shit, weathered a lot of storms. Any business does that's been in business this long. So I appreciate the insight, bro. Is there anything that you want to let everyone know about where they can go find you, what you do, and where you do it?
Man, I mean, the Fitness and Lifestyle podcast, I share very regular content, either 1 or 2 episodes per week. Other than that, probably just catch me on Instagram, which is at DJK Fitness. All the links to everything else will be through there, and email list and whatnot. But I'm sharing very regular content on that and the podcast. So that's probably the best place to find me.
Wicked. We'll put it all in the description below. Thank you guys for listening, and leave a review. We'll see you soon. Thanks.
It's only worth it if you work for it. It's only worth it if you work for it. I won't stop till they hear me now. I won't stop till I wear the crown.